Phil Guinois with Micah Watkins. Jack Deshane is not here today with the ENO Business Success Podcast. It is June 10th, 2024, and our special guest today is going to be Lisa Kneller. So, Micah, we didn't meet last week. That was Labor Day weekend, or Memorial Day weekend, rather. So we didn't meet on Monday, but what should we talk about today?
You know, I was driving in this morning, and I got to thinking, I was just recalling a lot of stuff going on and revisiting some of the empowerment courses that we do. We've got one coming up this weekend, and I was just, I was in that frame of mind. I was just recapping, what happens in those courses over those weekends, and I was thinking of the flea story. And I'm sure a lot of people have heard about this, but the flea, right? The flea is remarkable in the fact that it has a 36-inch vertical, the largest vertical that any animal or species on this planet has. The flea, comparative to size. So, imagine Michael Jordan if he had a 36-inch vertical. And if you did that in scale, it would actually be much higher than that compared to like what the flea would. It would be like jumping 30 feet in the air. It's astronomical. It might even be more than that. But the flea has the biggest vertical of any species on the planet.
I bet they don't have to do any plyometrics to get that vertical jump like we do as humans, right?
Nope. No, it is God's given talent to that species. It's just born with it. It's instinct, right? So the flea has the ability to jump 36 inches high, and it just bounces from, that's how they get around, and that's how they spread, right? And that, they live on dogs and make people itchy, yeehaw, and that's, when we think about that, okay, this is their instinct. This is just how they were created. Yet if I were to take a mayonnaise jar and I capture that flea and I stick him in that mayonnaise jar and I put the lid on, that flea goes, hey, I got a 36-inch vertical. I'm out of here. And he goes to jump up and he hits his head on the lid of the mayonnaise jar. He goes, hold on a second. What is this? I got a 36-inch vertical. He knows this. And so he keeps he's trying to get out of this jar, yet he keeps hitting his head. And over time, the flea then all of a sudden will stop jumping as high. What it will do is it will start jumping just high enough to not hit his head on the mayonnaise jar. Well, what's that? Now, here's the remarkable thing. I capture a couple more fleas, and I put them in the jar. Those fleas, too, same vertical. They start jumping, and they're hitting their heads on that mayonnaise jar lid, and all of a sudden, they start going, oh, and they're jumping just high enough to not hit their head on the top of the mayonnaise jar lid. And then those fleas create little fleas. And then those little fleas, they have the ability to have a 36-inch vertical, yet they just jump where their parents go, just high enough to not hit the lid. Now, this is the most astounding part. You can remove the lid off that jar, and now those fleas will forever just stay within the confines of that jar. They will never jump past it because of the environment. Because of the training, because of, conditioning of, well, this is as high as I can go. And now they will forever be trapped in that jar with no lid because that's what they're trained and conditioned to the environment. So for the humans, the lid is our limit.
It comes from lots of places too, right?
Oh, absolutely.
It comes from our upbringing, our the environment, our culture, comes from hurts, right? If you got hurt because of something, you put a limit on what chance you're going to take anymore, right?
Oh, yeah. It creates your it's your belief structure. Yeah. Your beliefs then become the lid to your jar and how you limit yourself. And it's all based on environment. It's all based on programming. It's all based on, the upbringing that you had, the experiences that you have in life, all of that. Then so what are we doing here? So, for business people, they get these great ideas. They're like, hey, I want to go do this. I got this great idea. And then they go out and they attempt to do it. And then what do most of them do?
Well, they back off once they've had a couple of challenging times, or somebody says, are you crazy? You can't do that.
Yeah. So they started smashing their head against the lid, and then they pulled back just a little bit. Oh, wait a second. Oh, that's a lot tougher. That's really challenging me. How do people break through that?
Well, coaching is one, right? But they've also got to, before they can even get into coaching, they have to be at a mindset that they're like, there's more. I know. I just don't know how to go and actually get it, right? So they start looking for solutions, and this weekend we have one of those solutions, right? So let's talk a little bit about, Breakthrough, our second course, and how that applies to limiting beliefs in the flea.
Yeah, well, there's a famous quote out there. The best things in life are on the other side of fear. So in order to, that's what, breakthrough is all about. It's about creating breakthrough in your life. And what are you attempting to break through? Well, if everything in your life is perfect and hunky-dory and amazing and awesome, and you acquire everything that you ever put your mind to it, then, well, you have it. Like, that's the epitome of like reaching the highest point of success in life is, oh, great, I've arrived, right? Yet there's still room for improvement, but you're aware of that. So Breakthrough this weekend is it's the training grounds to learn how to acquire the things that you desire in this world and in this life, business-wise, and your relationships, what else is there? It's all about relationships. What am I talking about?
Yeah. So what are some of the things that we've seen from a couple of people that have recently gone through the breakthrough? Like, what kind of shifts have we seen in a few of those people, Micah?
Oh, man. I've seen some from just taking massive action. No holds barred. They see it now. They were shown something to themselves that, through experiences, and they said, holy smokes. And they took charge of it. And then all of a sudden, you're just seeing them create massive action in the things that they wanted to do. I've seen people pivot and change, a direction that they were going, and all of a sudden they said, "Oh, wait a second, I was going this way. I think, and they make a small little shift, and now all of a sudden they started seeing results."
Yeah.
So it's like the rats in the maze, right? You want to go find the cheese. So you're going and running through the tunnels and all that. And this applies to all of us. We're all just running through the tunnels looking for the cheese. However, a lot of the times for us humans, we don't have that sniffer that those rats do, right? So we're just running through the maze and we're looking for the cheese, yet we're like, oh, I know the cheese is down this way. The cheese ain't down there.
It was at one time.
Sure, maybe, but you got it, right? Or maybe you thought that it was there and you keep running down that same path, or you saw someone else run down that same path and it was there for them, but it wasn't there for you. But yet you keep running down the same path, but there's no cheese. So a lot of it is, well, which direction are you going? So sometimes in a maze, it's just a small shift. Oh, not that turn. We need a turn over here. And then all of a sudden we're on the right path.
Yep.
We're on the path that's going to lead us to the cheese. At the end of the day, we all want the cheese. It's no different than the flea wanting to get out of that jar. But at some point, they've got to break free of their environment, if that's what they want. Now, there's a lot of people out there, business-wise, that they've just built themselves this nice little cozy environment that they want to just sit in, and yet they wonder why they just aren't growing the way that they'd hoped. They're doing well. They're successful, right? They're just like, yeah, I'm just plugging along. Right? But they're like, business could be better. Business could be, I want a little bit more. Yet they don't do anything to alter or change that.
Well, with the, and this is for humans too, but with the flea, when you take the lid off of the jar, there's probably some hesitation in there for them to even try to jump. And that's what happens with people, right? It didn't work. And so they become hesitant. So when there is an opening, they actually don't take action. They question it. Like, well, wait a minute. Let me see what happens. But opportunity doesn't show up at the perfect timing, right? There's an old saying, it's never the right time. You're never going to have the money, especially like with kids and things like that, right?
Isn't that the truth?
It just happens, right? So you've got to be able to recognize when the lid comes off the jar, so to speak, and you see an opening to jump and take that action. And so people hesitate.
Absolutely. So I'll never forget. Like I've got like one of my mentors, and really, like mentors in life. When just an amazing human being that has taught me a ton. Really, I mean, he was just there to give me advice and counsel and wisdom throughout many years of my life. And one of the things that he has always mentioned to me is that the importance of being able to take massive action. If it's what you want, go get it. However, it isn't going to come easy. It takes massive action. And, you hear, you could scroll through Instagram and watch all of these videos of, famous people talking about all this stuff. And what did they do? They had to take massive action towards something.
And that means you're going to, just by nature, you're going to have to set some things off to the side, right? Because you can't take massive action and still live the way you're living, right? If you're going to take massive action, things are going to be out of balance. Yeah, your life's going to take some shifts. You're going to have to, there's going to be some sacrifices. I think Steve Harvey, explained it best. So everyone's got a gift, right? I love the way that he paints this picture. And, him on his little daily talk show, I don't think it's on the air anymore, but it was awesome. He'd take like 5-10 minutes at the end of his show and really just empower his crowd. Right, his audience. And one of the times he was talking about how everyone's given a gift, but to fully experience your gift, it's like standing at the top of a cliff, and you've got to jump. It's there for you, but the only way to really activate your gift is to jump and experience your soar. You've got to spread your wings. You have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, and you've got to be uncomfortable enough to just be like, all right, this is it. I want something more in my life. And so you jump, and you've got to have faith. The faith that, yes, I will get there. Yes. And you're going to probably bounce along the side of that cliff a couple of times before you are able to get far enough away from the cliff where you can fully soar and spread your arms and just embrace your gift. But you're going to have some bumps and bruises, and you're going to get cut along the way, and you're going to have some hurts, and it's going to be painful, and it isn't pretty. But when you find the freedom in that, that's where then there's the release. And you're like, holy smokes, I found it. But it's that massive action to put you in the right trajectory of where you want to go. And I think, Micah, that shows up a lot in networking as well, for businesses is, people get into, business networking and, they think that it's going to come quickly. Well, it really depends upon the industry and, all kinds of things. Certain businesses, very low risk, right? Very low entry fee to do business with somebody, right? A pool cleaner, a landscaper, a house cleaner, not a lot of risk. But then you get, someone like maybe a financial planner or something along those lines where, now it's not $50 to $100. It's I'm moving, $250,000 that I've set aside over here to you. That takes time to build the relationship, to have somebody trust enough to move. So there is a cycle of what business looks like, and some get it easier. So you have to recognize when you get into business networking that you're going to have this cycle that you go through. And you could even have two financial planners, so same products, same everything, but depending upon how, quote, evolved someone is, emotional intelligence, that person may actually get business quicker than somebody else, even though they've been in the networking space just as long, because the other one hasn't learned how to develop those relationships. They haven't learned how to connect with people so that then, they can end up doing business with them. So it's a cycle, right? But that also comes back to, the limitations that we put on ourselves. And limitations can go both ways. I should be getting it faster than I am, right? Or I can't ever get there. Those are both limitations.
Oh, absolutely. And, that's the beauty of what we do in the mastermind groups and the training that we've got and all the courses that we have. It bypasses a lot of that time. It creates trust quicker because everyone's on the same page. It's awesome. $1 million idea. I'm going to become a florist. I'm going to open a florist shop every January and promote it through January every year, and then it'll close down after Valentine's Day. $1 million idea. There you go, folks.
Yep.
No, I mean, yes. Business networking. So there's the status quo, right? And we got to do this to help grow businesses. So I'll never forget. Same mentor that I was talking about earlier. It's like, all right, how do I do this? How do I go start this business that I want to go do? Is go network. Go find every mixer, after party, just whatever, networking event, whatever. You need to be in front of people. And that's all businesses. Businesses need to be in front of people. It's awesome when you got a brick and mortar and, a store, but just because you have a brick and mortar doesn't mean that your phone's going to ring. Here's the other thing that people got to realize. It's all marketing. All of it. 90% of every business out there is marketing. I don't care what it is that you do.
Yep.
It's marketing, 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 marketing. 10% is you actually doing whatever it is that you do. The other 90% is you making massive action marketing and getting out there and letting people know who you are, why you do what you do, and what makes you special, and how you can impact them. And when you focus on how I can impact you as the focus of your marketing, then all of a sudden that's where things can take a shift. Well, how do you get there? You go through trainings, you go through emotional intelligence training, you go through, empowerment weekends, like a Tony Robbins weekend or one of our weekends or something to get you into a better space mentally so that you can overcome the hurdles.
And it's trials and tribulations, right? You just got to go through, You were talking earlier, and I'm, getting ready to start training again for the Tour de Tucson bike race. And, one of my trainers, thing he always says is embrace the suffering, right? You're going to suffer in cycling, whether it's climbing a hill or, whatever it is, you've just got to embrace the suffering. And that's part of the process, is you just have to do it long enough for you to learn the things that work for you and when to take advantage of certain things. So I know, like on cycling, I know where my sweet spots are. I can take advantage of those. And maybe that's leading into climbing a hill. Well, if I can hit that hill faster, then it's easier for me than trying to go up that hill super slow and suffer for, 20 minutes trying to climb that hill. I can shorten that process, right? So it's a matter of going through the stages that you have to, and it's really more you learning about yourself when you're not getting the referrals or the leads or closing the business. You've got to keep looking at, like, okay, what's going on? Where am I at? What's my mindset? And the last piece is, it's always a timing issue. Everything in life is a timing issue, either for your potential client or for you, or both, right? They may not be ready today, but in 6 months, they may come back and go, I'm ready now. They may be ready today. You may not be ready for them today. So the business doesn't get done, right? It's all timing. And you have to look at the timing piece.
Absolutely.
And then just be okay with it. Just be okay with there's a timing for everything.
Well, it's the process.
Yeah.
Like we're all in the process. All of us. Whatever process that we're in, it's just our process. We're just in it till we're out of here and we get to decide to go home, right? We're just in it. So, I'm sitting there thinking what you were talking about, Phil. I'm curious how many people your age don't think they can cycle. I'm just sitting there going, and I know, how many years is this now that you've been cycling?
7 years.
7 years. 7 years at your age now. So I want to go, you go back to where you were 7 years ago when you decided to start cycling. How many people at that age would go, oh no, I can't do that.
Yeah.
Where else are they doing that in their lives and in their businesses and whatever? But it's just, you've also gone through a lot of work. You've done the work for many, many years. But, when we break it down into perspective like that, hey, you also don't have the mindset of someone your age. You don't.
32? Is that what you said?
Yeah. You're like younger than than me. Yeah.
Our guest did a little cough of really? It's interesting because last weekend, pretty much every Memorial Day and every Labor Day, we do just a fun ride from the Gilbert Water Towers all the way down to the state capitol, just kind of celebrating, our veterans, our country and all of that stuff. And, we took out, and there was probably 8 of us in our group, and then we met up with another group over by Kiwanis Park, and, they probably had 12 people in their group. And one of the guys is riding with us, and he's a few years younger than I am. And we were talking, and the kid that was riding next to him, he asked him how old he was, and he's like, holy moly, I hope I can ride like that when I'm your age. But it's exactly what you were talking about.
Yeah, it's all perspective.
Yeah.
It's all perspective. So I think it's about that time. Let's bring on our guest.
Let's bring her on. Bring her in, Micah.
All right. Well, Lisa, we want to welcome you. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me. It's quite an honor.
Awesome. Well, it's we've been networking for a while. You've been a member of ENO for some time now, and I think that, I love how when we decided to start doing these podcasts, and it's just been amazing how it just seems to be the right fit always based on the conversation. Here we were talking about what we were talking about just earlier, the flee and mind, and breakthrough and all this stuff, the things that we have to do to achieve the things that we want in life. And here we are, Lisa, You're a life coach, correct?
I am a life coach, yes. And I love your topic because it is all about mindset, and my passion is mind management. So everything that you're talking about today is right up my alley.
Perfect. So how'd you get here? What made you decide I want to coach people in this way? What was the deciding factor?
Well, it happened when I was working at Grand Canyon University as an enrollment counselor, and I had an opportunity as an employee. A benefit was going to school. And at my age, which was at the time 60, I didn't want to get an MBA. I thought, well, that would be silly. I don't want to climb the corporate ladder kind of thing. But they had a graduate certificate of completion in life coaching. And so I thought, that sounds up my alley, and I think I'll do that. And that was a 10-month academic program. And the reason that resonated with me is because I had been teaching yoga for 20 years. And I already had this mind, body, spirit background. And I always say that yoga was my coach. Yoga was my coach for a very long time in taking classes, learning philosophy, and teaching for all that time. It just informed my ability to coach in an area which is so aligned with yoga. So the whole purpose of practicing yoga is to direct and focus mental activity. A lot of people think it's an exercise program or that you do lots of funky poses, and it's really cool. And you do that, but you do it as a way to go more vertical. Like I'm thinking of the flea now. You can learn through the postures and the physical practice of yoga that you can go beyond limits that you thought you had. So that's how I started in my coaching practice, and then I just supplemented that with a whole lot more education.
Awesome. So what gets you super excited about what you do for your clients?
Transformation, the light bulb going off, helping people have insight. Excuse me, because people have what it takes to succeed. They are stuck with their limiting thoughts and beliefs. And once they realize that they have way more potential than they thought they had, it's exciting. Then they can start to see possibilities, and then they can start to make plans to change their situation and do all the things like, the massive action part. Massive kind of scares me a little bit. I like focused action based on decisions that you make to move forward. And
you could almost replace massive with intention.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Intentional actions, which would correlate with your focus, your focused actions, all that.
Well, that's one of the things I learned in the in Jack's intro course. What's the name of the first course?
Achieving Business and Life Success.
Achieving Business and Life Success. And I try not to give anything away here, but one of the things I came away with from that was that, intention is everything. Intention, if you have 100% intention, then the action is going to follow. So focused, intentional, massive action.
Well, it's, so for your clients, when they're like, okay, great, I'm sure they're sitting there going, okay, Lisa, all right, I'm going to get intentional and focused about this. And they're chugging along and they're like, ooh, shiny things, a squirrel. Oh man, hey, did you see that new show? I just binged all of it. Because if you asked me if I wanted to watch a 10-hour movie, I'd tell you you're crazy. But I will binge 10 episodes straight of an hour program.
Me too, Micah.
That's
my entertainment. That's my relaxation.
So are you there to help keep people accountable? When they're oh, hey Lisa, I want to come to you. I need some guidance. I need some help. I need I'm trying. What does that look like? Is that a space that you're in, or like how does this all fit together?
I think I help people stay focused because it is easy to lose track. It is easy to follow the shiny penny, but in accountability, yes, but I help them to focus in on what they really want. If they really, really want something, they can get it, but they might need some help, overcoming real or perceived obstacles along the way. And those obstacles, they're many. I'll say there's about 9 of them.
Okay. So when it comes to the obstacles that people have to overcome, do you think it's mostly perceived obstacles as opposed to physical obstacles that get in the way? Or is it an even split? Like, what would you say?
I do think it's both. I don't know if I could give it a percentage, but, sometimes, let's say money's an obstacle or time is an obstacle. And I used to use that as an excuse, time. But I was working full-time when I started my business, and it made it more difficult for me to manage my energy. So, somebody's working full-time and they're trying to build a business part-time. To me, time is a practical and real issue. And, you just don't have the same hours in a day to do the massive action that you would if you're pursuing a business full time. Does that make sense?
No, it makes sense.
Okay. So, and then for somebody who, let's say, is working a full-time business and they start using time as an excuse or a reason, I think that's perceived. I think there's ways to manage your time and work around that obstacle. So, and also I think most obstacles can be overcome and not overnight. Like you have to be patient. You have to be willing to try new things. You have to be willing to be resourceful.
Well, and I think something that Mike, you said, and that Lisa, you were in on the conversation is, is it a physical or is it a mental limitation? So I'm going back to my cycling. Which came first, the chicken or the egg? So, the suffering, right? That means your muscles are sore, so which is first? Is it the physical that I've got to overcome? Or is it the mental that I've got to overcome the physical? And it's like really hard to tell the difference between the two, right? And I don't know that there really is a difference between the two.
Well, I have what I call a physical limitation. So I get cold sores. You guys know what cold sores are?
Yeah.
Okay. It's a virus, and it erupts when there's stress or too much sun or whatever. And I discovered that when I do too much physically, like workout or too much yoga or whatever, I break out in a cold sore. Well, it isn't just the little sore that shows up on the lip. It affects the whole body energetically. So you feel down for like 7 to 10 days. And at some point, I realized I do not have the stamina to do hard workouts and to do that much because it makes me feel pretty crummy, when I get to that. So I've just decided I'm not going to work out that hard. I'm going to do what the amount of walking I can do and the amount of yoga that I can do that makes me feel good. But I'm not going to be obsessed about having to do it because I feel better when I'm not pushing myself. And that is my energy personally. Now, some people get cold sores and they just are high energy anyway, and they can push through it and it doesn't bother them. So that's kind of relating to the...
Well, and I think the other piece is knowing when and how to manage your energy levels, right? So I'm a morning guy, right? I have more energy in the morning. I'm not a late day go to the gym workout in the evening. Can I? Have I? Yes, I've done 2-a-days. And things like that. But just energetically wise, I'm cleaner, focused in the morning probably until noonish, 1 o'clock, right? After that, I don't have the same clarity and focus. So I think it comes down to really knowing and then understanding how to manage that too, because you may have one of those days that is a 15-hour day, and you've got to manage that energy level and focus throughout the day. Well, there are foods for that. There's, how do you rest, right? As a yoga instructor, you probably know ways to take a 15-minute rest, and how do you actually rest, to then be able to get right back at it, right? Whereas a lot of people, they, push, and then they fall off the cliff and they're done, right? So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I do believe that, we can overcome fears. We can overcome a lot of the other obstacles. So let me think. Fear, knowledge, skill, these are obstacles that people run across. And money, time, belief, other people's opinions, or just other people. Those are some of the obstacles that we run across. And I think when you're feeling that resistance of getting something done, and you're knowing you're needing to do it, and you're hitting the resistance, you do need support there sometimes. You need to know that is a thing. And, how can I work through that resistance? How can I lean into it and do the uncomfortable thing?
Yeah. So you mentioned accountability, Lisa. So accountability is an interesting conversation. It's an interesting word. It usually conjures up uncomfortableness for people, right? Being held accountable. So give us an example of what, accountability would look like with a coaching client of yours. Like if you're coaching someone, what's the most effective way for you to hold them accountable, or for you to have them hold themselves accountable? And, there's probably, in the last many years, that's probably shifted from what it was 15 years ago or 20 years ago, where it was much more a militant kind of, mindset of you said you were going to do this and, da-da-da. So what does that look like when you're coaching a client?
Yeah, that's such a great question. It is, it's loving support for one thing. I mean, that's the thing that is first and foremost is, you're loving your client. You're making sure that they are focused on what it is they want, and then you help them. So hopefully you help them have insight into doing what they want to do, or in thinking a certain way that would be more helpful to them. And then, once you get through to the action part, you say, okay, well, what can we do to move forward? What are the action steps that we could take? And I would write them down as the coach, and I would say, okay, what are you able to do this week? What can you get done? And then when we meet next time, we'll review this, and hopefully they're going to go into action on that. So the next meeting, let's say we get together and I might bring up, you mentioned you wanted to get this done. First of all, we celebrate what we have done. I mean, that's important to celebrate even the small steps. And then looking at what it is they've accomplished and where it is they fell short, but not in a negative way. It's just like, oh, okay, so you didn't get that done. Do you think you'll be able to get it done this week? And there's no shaming, no shaming at all. And I'm sure there are coaches out there who are probably stricter with that. But I think you also have to have a certain self-motivation to be coached, to be a good client. You kind of have to want to change. And then if you don't, you're going to have the results. And I always like to kind of let's look at the results. What do we want? And then let's work backwards from there. What do we need to do to get what we want? How do we need to feel to do what we want? And what thoughts do we need to have the feeling of excitement or courage or whatever it is we need to move forward?
Yeah. So one of the coaches that I hired years ago, he's actually a very well-known speaker now, an author. He's got a whole franchise of books. His name's Hal Elrod.
Oh, yeah, I know Hal.
And, I coached under Hal for a year. And, one of the things that I learned in coaching from him, underneath him, was, if I didn't get something done or whatever, different from other coaches, he would like, how does that make you feel? Mm-hmm. Right? It would all come back to me answering what was there for me versus some coaches are like, well, you said you were going to do this, and why didn't it get done, and all of that stuff. He literally just brought it all back to me and like, okay, well, what was that like for you? What was that experience? How did you feel about that? And it made a huge difference in progress, because it was all he was doing was allowing me to do a little self-analyzation versus what I was talking about earlier. And, my dad was a full colonel in the Air Force Reserve. So, there was very much that, more hardcore boot camp kind of mentality. So,
well, it's very similar in, you go talk to a therapist, right? A therapist is, the same thing with counseling, all that. They're going to ask you like, well, okay, what is in your capacity that you are going to be able to, do X, Y, and Z and feel comfortable about it and feel accomplished. So it's very much in the same line of, well, just, hey, what can you do? I think that's fantastic, because what it does is it's their own words. And now when if let's say we're clients, I'm the client of yours, Lisa, and you ask me the questions and I say, well, yeah, I can do this, and this. And we get together and I did three of the things and I didn't do the last one, right? I mean, for you, it's just nothing. It's like, okay, well, you said you were going to get this done, So what Phil's saying is like, all right, well, how do you feel about that? And are you still committed to even doing that? Or is that something that you don't want to do? And it's more self-discovery on their end. And that's how they become successful. Look, we all need a hand just guiding us along the way to just show us different ways to accomplish things. And I'm a huge proponent of coaching. When I got into networking and doing all that stuff, I went out and I got a coach and was like, all right, I need some insight. I need some insight on some business stuff and this and that, and when you open yourself to, hey, I don't have all the answers. I can go out and seek the advice of others, get some guidance to find out where I need to go. My success rate will probably go up. Right?
Right.
Yep. I should hope. It did for me.
There's something called, predictable results. Like if you do certain things for a certain amount of time, it's predictably going to result in a certain outcome. So whatever it is you're out there doing in marketing, sales, or whatever, and sometimes you have to try new things. And one of my coaches said everything works. It's just, you got to find the right combination. But I do think having the mindset of it's predictable, it's going to happen, and I can work around this, or I can get some insight or advice. And if I need accountability, I'll get that. I do love, the questions Hal was asking you, because they are self-reflective, and it's good to ask questions. And the better questions you have as a coach, the more insight your client's going to have.
Yeah. Well, and I think on the predictability too, the challenge is for most people, and many times they don't do it long enough to have the predictability, right? So they're always looking for that next shiny thing, right? So they're not getting the predictability. But then also, as you develop that predictability, you actually, the longer you do it, to a certain point, you actually get more proficient at it, right?
Yes.
Jim Rohn talks about that. I can beat you. You might close 10, but I can only close 1. But next month I can close 2. And just that progress over time, you get better and better at your skill. And I can beat you because I'll present to more people, in Jim Rohn's case of what he was talking about.
Yeah, and I think systems are important. That's something I'm learning right now is systems. You got to have systems when you're building a business.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, what came first, the chicken or the egg, the system or the... No, I'm just kidding. No, systems are massive.
Yeah.
Again, it's the accountability piece. Right? Without the system, then all of a sudden you're like, you're just kind of floundering around there, just flopping like a fish on the beach, and we'll see whichever direction you go to attempt to get back in the water.
I have this mini mastermind, and when I say that, I mean literally there's 2 of us, and we're both in the personal development space and both coaching and that kind of thing. And so we have a meeting once a week, and when we meet, we have a list of things that we talked about the previous week. So the first question is, let's go through your list. Like, what would let's review what you did last week. And then we go through her list, and then we go through my list or whatever. And that feels really good when you've accomplished some things. And when you have a list of things to do. Oh, this is my homework for the week. I decided what it was going to be. Nobody gave it to me. Now, in a coaching context, I might give a client homework and, I'm going to hope they do it, or I'm going to really encourage them to do it. But I'm self-coaching now a little bit. I'm self-coaching a lot now, actually. And so in this little meeting that I have, it's very rewarding because I get to not brag, but I get to say, I got this done this week, and that felt really good.
Yeah. And
vice versa.
So when you said, I think it was funny that you said, a mini mastermind. Do you know the definition of a mastermind?
I can't give you a definition.
So Napoleon Hill coined the phrase mastermind, and it defines as just 2 or more minds that when the two minds or more come together collectively, they form a third invisible mind. Right? So even in your mastermind with this one other person, you are still, forming a third invisible mind that's synergistic with what you're set out to accomplish. So it's amazing what the power that we possess with our minds, even when it's a mini mastermind.
Yeah.
Of just 2 of us, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's fantastic. So as like a life coach, what's important, what I found is that, the coaches that are really successful, they also get coached. They're also, going out and seeking how to improve themselves and, so that they can be a better service for their clients. So aside from your mastermind that you were talking about, are there any other things that you do to, grow yourself so that you can be there even more so for your clients?
Yeah, I love that question because I think it's important for all of us to continue to develop, regardless of what business you're in, but particularly personal development and coaching. You have to keep growing. And so, yes, I have a sales coach. I had a business coach earlier on that was helping me establish all of my foundational stuff, my infrastructure, if you will, my website and my email list and all of that. And now I have a high-end sales coach. And also, my coach is being coached by another amazing coach who's being coached by the ultimate coach. I can tell you more about that sometime.
No, but that right there, that shows look, we never acquire it all. There's always something to learn somewhere.
Yes.
And there's growth to be had, and go out and seek it and find it, not for yourself, but it's to make yourself better for others.
Yes.
Especially in your place where you're a life coach. People come to you to, hey, I want to make improvements in my life. I want to feel better about what I'm doing here on this rock. It's a miracle we're even here, right? Let's make it amazing while we're gifted this time.
Absolutely. I really believe that a lot of our suffering comes from our own heads. And if we could really learn to manage that, to manage our minds, we would have more joy. We would have more smooth living, efficacious. Things are flowing. Things are working better. And I think everybody can experience that. And it's important to me that they try, and some people are never going to go there, but there are people who do want to change and transform.
Oh yeah, it's in every one of us, and everyone wants the best life that they can possibly live. Nobody wants to be living a life where they're just beaten down and just broken and going through misery. I mean, who wants that? There's not a lot of people that want that. They want to better themselves, right? They want to.
I don't know. Not everyone.
Well,
only because the evidence is out there that not everyone wants that. Maybe they wish they had it, but wishing and wanting are two different things. I don't know. Anything?
What my dad used to say as a full professor of psychology at ASU and a full colonel in the Air Force, when I would say, I wish I had this, he'd say, wish in one hand, crap in the other one, see which one gets full first.
There you go. I think it goes back to the environment. What environment do people grow up in? What environment do they come from? What stories and backgrounds has already been given to them, and beliefs and limitations and all of that. So I think deep down, people want to. They don't want to live that life.
They don't want to suffer. And my daughter's a trauma therapist, and it's just never ending out there. The trauma, the difficulties people are going through. I don't do that kind of work. I'm working with people who are mentally healthy and functioning well. But there's still a lot of pain out there, and there's still a lot of people who need help.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's when we get into the therapy questions and the social workers and, doing all that. And, my best friend's wife, she got started in the social work space and helping people there. And, that's a whole different animal. Yeah. That is a different animal. And, It's the helping profession, and that encompasses a lot of different. Oh, yeah. And a lot of different facets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, Lisa, what else? Is there anything that what's your big vision? What's your big vision for you and your business? Anything special?
Well, right now, I'm focused on just establishing a one-on-one coaching client business. That's really where my focus is right now. Eventually, I would like to do group coaching, because then I could impact more people at the same time. But right now I'm focused one-on-one. So that's part of my vision, is group coaching. The other part of my vision is to have courses available online that are helpful to people that may not be able to afford coaching right away. And just really increasing my impact. And I did create a podcast for that reason. And it's interesting because I was, in my very first episode, I posed the question, why do we need another podcast? There's so many podcasts out there, so many healthcare professionals already doing this. But the truth is that not enough people are doing it, because there's still people, there are different tribes looking for different avenues for help. And so, so I want to impact thousands of people, and I'm doing that one step at a time.
And that's all we can do, is one step at a time. Put our one foot forward and just keep making one step after the next.
And one person at a time, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you're only affecting who you're affecting at that moment, right? You could be in front of 100 people, not all of them are going to get the impact, right? It might be a handful, right? So you just affect the ones that are there right now. Micah, with some of your things, you invite 20 people and they say they're going to be there and 3 show up. Doesn't matter. It's the 3 that are there that you get to make a difference.
Yeah, you still got to plug in the guitar and play the gig. Regardless of who shows up, somebody's going to show up. And then you've got to be there for them. You've got to show up for them. So, I think it's awesome.
I love ENO because of the love of people that you all have, that you all care so much about people. And I love that you have this empowerment piece that nobody else has. They're just not doing it out there, and that's what makes your organization unique. And that's why I joined it, because it really aligned with my thinking. Yeah.
And you checked this out and kicked the tires for a little while, didn't you?
Well, yeah, but that mainly that was because I was working full time, and I wasn't able to put as much time into networking as I had wanted to. So yes, I did, but also I was holding back because of time.
Yeah.
My big excuse at the time, which was time.
Well, fantastic. I think it was a great conversation. This was a good, I'm still stuck on the, why do we need another podcast? Your response to that, there's so many people, just putting information out there, but what kind of information? Yeah, there's a lot of podcasts out there. There are not a lot of empowering conversations out there happening in the world. So, and why is that? You know what? Like, I find that fascinating. I was just thinking about that when you had mentioned that. And it was like, there are a lot of podcasts. I mean, you can find a podcast on just about any topic under the sun and just people talking about whatever, right? But how many of them are really, looking to impact and help and inspire and uplift and all that stuff? There's just not a lot. I'm willing to bet you it's probably well less than 10%.
Yeah.
Probably a handful, yeah. I love the word vertical, though, because vertical implies depth and height. And I like to go deep. And so there are a lot of very shallow conversations going on around the world, even within families. And I don't do shallow. So I'm hoping that my podcast, I know, and it's brand new, but I've already impacted one person at least, because she listened to my podcast, which had my daughter on as a guest, and my daughter has a podcast which goes deep in psychotherapy, and that woman went to that podcast and listened to my daughter's stuff and was impacted by it. And I thought, okay, I've reached one person. That's pretty cool. I could probably reach a few more.
Awesome. That's all it takes.
Yep. Well, we want to thank you, Lisa. It was great having you on today. Great conversation.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's so fun to be with you guys.
Lisa, tell everybody how they can reach you, name of your business, your website, and a phone number.
All right, thank you. Well, I don't give out my phone number.
That's fine.
But you can find me at lisanellercoaching.com. So that's Kneller. The K is silent. I do have a podcast called My Golden Life. You'll find that on Apple and Spotify. And, I'm on Facebook. You could find me on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Lisa Kneller, Kneller.
Perfect.
So.
And if you can't remember any of those, you can come to the ENO Facebook group and find Lisa through our Facebook group as well. All right. Well, that's a wrap. Thank you all for being here and listening. If you are interested in learning more about ENO, you can check us out at enosuccess.com, or, again, find us on our Facebook group. And I think that's it, Micah.
Great. All right. Peace out, everyone. Great show. Awesome. Loved it.
Audience loved it, too.